All right, so we had a big rankings update the past month, really, with the 2025s, 26s, and 27s. We got a good look at all of these guys at state games, future games, tournaments. So great time to update these rankings after, a good look this summer. So Drew, I don't know if you want to kind of take us through that, kind of like some of the guys in the top 10 from that 2025 class. I know there was a couple newcomers into the top 10, some big risers as well. So a big update for us in that 25 class.
Yeah, and it comes after a long summer, where we see a lot. This is a big summer for these 2025s, especially the higher level 25s that are potential, MLB draft follows for next year. They're getting out on the circuit, trying to be seen. And really, that's what the top of this class is. It's the guys that we think should be draft follows moving forward. And right at the top of the class, you've got left-hander Cameron Appenzeller down at Glenwood. We've talked about him plenty. But I think he will be him and Jaden Fauske. Jaden Fausche's number 2. They're both top 40, national prospects. We think they are very high level prospects. They'll probably be featured prominently in our draft boards once we start creating those this winter, next spring, getting ready for the next year's draft. But it's a really good class coming off a year where the 2024s. I thought it was a very strong, solid 2024 class. And then all of a sudden we had 10 high school prospects get drafted in this summer's draft. I did not expect that. I'm pretty sure that led, the country. No other state had as many high school players drafted as Illinois. So it's exciting to see that. And then to look at this 2025 class and to see, man, who are those names that could be buzzing come the draft next year? I think anybody at the top with Appenzeller, Fauske, Jack Bauer, has long been towards the top of the class. You've got Connor Essenberg right behind him, who's another extremely talented left-handed arm, also swings the bat really well. Quinn Shambo at number 5 is the top catcher, just true defensive catcher in the class. And then you see what he's doing this fall on the football field, plays quarterback up there for Libertyville, and I'm pretty sure he's leading the state in passing yards right now. So the guy's the real deal in both sports, which is really cool to see. And then coming in at number 6 is the guy making the biggest jump in this recent update at the top of the class, and Aiden Flynn, big-bodied left-handed arm, committed to Illinois at Marist. Tyler saw him this spring, but he keeps climbing up the board. We talked about, a left-handed arms in our last podcast that we just did, and how big of a commodity they are. You got a good body, left-handed arm that throws strikes with a quick arm with more to come, more stuff to come with the repertoire too. Like, he's at number 6 right now. It would not shock me if that keeps going up because he keeps getting better. But yeah, Aiden Flynn comes in at number 6. Another guy that I think, at least checks a ton of boxes from a draft perspective, what pro scouts are looking for: the body, the run tool, the power, the ease. You got it right there at number 7 in Trey Myers at New Trier. He's committed to Indiana, but he checks a ton of boxes. Right behind him, Joe Chirotto, Edwardsville, two-sport, Alabama commit, long time, kind of just stud athlete, performer. Ethan Moore had a big summer. He's a shortstop at OPRF, committed to Louisville. And then coming in at number 10 is first time inside the top 10 for him, Southern Illinois product, Cesar Valier, right-handed arm, Brandon Menser. Recently committed to Cincinnati. He was uncommitted during his performance at the Illinois State Games, and it was lights out and extremely, extremely interesting. He checks a ton of boxes. It's a long-levered, two-sport, young look, small town. The sky is the limit for him, and it's a high spin fastball. It's a high spin breaking ball. He throws enough strikes. I think the sky, I don't see him slowing down anytime soon. I can't speak high enough about Brandon Menser. And then just looking down the list, outside of the top 10, some guys that are making a push towards the top. Maybe some buzz guys from the summer. I think Joe DeCell, you got to start right there. Outfield left-handed pitcher. I had a lot of coaches reaching out on him because he was uncommitted throughout the summer and really performed at some high-level events. He ended up committing to Cincinnati, like Brandon Menser. I mean, they've plucked a lot of guys here late that were some of the top prospects in the class. And then behind Joe DeCell, you've got Ryan Schaffnet. Gavin, I know you're familiar with him. Yeah, climbing up the board.
I saw him quite a few times in the spring, and it was a good look from what we had seen in the past. And this summer and really at the Illinois State games, he kind of solidified that. I think a lot of our staff that had seen him kind of all said the same thing, that's probably one of the best changeups they'd seen, and a lot of command with it. He really shows the ability to throw strikes with his fastball and changeup, and then he's got a solid breaking ball too that I think was looking better at the state games. And he committed to Bradley recently or soon after the state games. But I actually saw Owen Roberts too quite a bit. I saw him on the mound and at the plate. He's up to number 48, and he was up to 90 on the mound. Really quick arm, athletic mover, and then at the plate, he's a right-handed hitter. That's very simple approach, simple bat path, not a lot of movement. And then defensively, he can pick it up the middle too. So he's going to Indiana State, and he was one that committed after the event as well. So really good showings from both Schaffner and Roberts, and rightfully so, they're moving up the board. But Drew, I know we've got some highly ranked 25s that are still uncommitted here. If you want to kind of go through some of those prospects on that list.
Yeah, for sure. And just going back to Owen Roberts a little bit, I mean, you touched on all of it, but he was a guy that came to a showcase, showed some tools. When that happens, we hadn't had any in-game looks at him leading up to that point, like in our last rankings update. So we try to tread a little lightly on those guys that we maybe have one look at in a showcase, but never seen them in a game, never seen them face a breaking ball, handle a ball on the move at shortstop. So, we were conservative with him. He comes to the state games. Well, even before the state games, we heard his name and saw his name all spring long because he was tearing it up in spring ball and was actually the conference player of the year there for Wabanzi. But then we finally get our look at him in game at the Illinois State games. It's like, all right, this is what we needed to see. He is a true high level guy. He's top 50 in our class now. And, once we see it play in a game, then we make sure we get him slotted correctly in the rankings. And I say correctly, to the best of our ability, with more confidence and more knowledge on him holistically as a player, not just a showcase guy, not just one guy we saw, taking at bat in a game, but we've got a ton now of information on him. We've tracked his success in the spring, throughout the summer, and then we get to see it firsthand live for ourselves at the Illinois State games. And Indiana State obviously saw it as well, and they committed him. So yeah, getting into some of these more, higher level 2025s, because we've got a lot of guys ranked right now. There's some guys that aren't ranked that are good players. That happens in every class. But given the new recruiting rules, given everything going on in the college landscape right now, schools having to cut their rosters down to 34, there's more and more 25s that are coming back onto the market. There are a lot of guys, a lot of good players that are still looking for schools, looking for the right fit. The top guy is Chase Peterson. He was a senior future game participant this past summer. Glenbrook North, he's long performed for Glenbrook North on varsity as an underclassman. That's what he's always done. He's always hit. He's got tools. He can run. He can play all over the outfield. But he's a name to know. I think the bat alone warrants plenty of attention, but Chase Peterson, Glenbrook North, he comes in at number 52. That's a guy that some people need to know about. Two arms that are still uncommitted, and one that popped at the Illinois State games, and I'm pretty sure he was on your mound, Peter, was Martin Villagomez out of Revis. He's still on the market. I'll let you talk on him if you've got any info on Martin there. And then behind him is Michael Furmanek, a long righty who reclassed. And he's a name to know. Plainfield East High School. He's been, as firm as the low 90s from a unique low slot with a lot of sink. But yeah, Martin Villagomez, Peter, anything you have on him?
Yeah, I saw both of these guys actually. I saw Martin at the state games and then Michael this past weekend. Yeah, Martin did not really know. I saw him play a position in the spring, but I did not see him pitch. So first time seeing him. Love the way it works. Really love the way the fastball comes out. Think he was up to 90 with high spin. Um, could land the breaking ball to both sides of the plate. I think it's a really, really, really interesting uncommitted arm. And then Fermanic, same thing. He's really interesting and also still looking for a school. 6'4" at least, maybe a little taller. Uh, really deceptive, tough, long levers, comes at you from a funky angle. Fastball has all sorts of sink. Like Drew, you said in the past, he could probably get outs against Division 1 hitters with just the fastball right now. Um, and yeah, he'll flip in that little frisbee slider too. It's just a really tough look for opposing hitters for sure.
Yeah. And another arm who goes to the same high school as Jacob Parr, Lamont, who made a run in state this past summer, this past June, who should be poised to make another run this year. They were loaded with juniors, but Shea Glotzbach, guy that kind of emerged for them at Lamont this spring, two-way, 6'4", really fills out the uniform, plenty more strength to come. Um, I think his future's probably on the mound as a right-handed pitcher, but I like the way he stands in the box. It's a left-handed bat, really looks the part in the box as well. But on the mound, it keeps ticking up. It keeps getting better from the velo to the stuff to the breaking ball. Now, he'll tickle a couple upper 80s. When I saw him this spring, it was 84, 86 with a breaking ball that just kind of landed for a strike. Now he's touching more like 88. The breaking ball is firming up, and I just like a lot of these guys I feel like we've talked about today, he just keeps getting better. And that's what it's all about. And those are the guys we tend to talk about, are guys that keep getting better. Because that's what this game is all about. It's not about being who you are at 16 years old. It is about pushing that envelope, getting better every single day until you're finally done with this game or you hit that plateau, wherever that may be. So I love Shea Glotzbach. I do. I think there's going to be plenty of suitors for him as well. And if anybody saw him that wants to touch on him, feel free. But I'll keep going with another high-level arm that I think also, like Glotzbach, plenty more to come, and it's Caston Gobert at Providence Catholic. Like Lamont, Macon State, Providence Catholic made a state run. They actually won state, and Caston Gobert was a huge reason why. He led them, on the mound throughout the playoffs. Another long, levered 6'5" type of frame that fills out the uniform with more strength to come. He's a former basketball player. The velo is not anything crazy right now. It's more mid 80s. He might touch an upper 80s every once in a while, but he more sits in that 85, 86, 87 range. But he controls the fastball. He lands the breaking ball for a strike, and I think there's a lot more to come there. So, two arms that I like, definitely, warrant being talked about. They're both top 88 prospects in the class. And those are some arms that I think deserve definitely some high follows here moving forward. But there's a couple of position players as well. Number 77, the new number 77 in the class is Ryan Lazuski, a middle infielder from Fenwick. And then coming in at number 82 is an outfielder from Lincoln Way Central, Filippo Barata. Both of them are, continue to climb. Ryan Lazuski, he was a unique story because he was on the shelf a little bit the summer of his sophomore year. We didn't get a great look at him. And then this past spring, he was playing for Fenwick, and then he was out and about this summer. But Tyler, I think you got a look at Lazuski and I think Barata as well.
Yeah, starting with Lazuski, I believe Pete saw him in the spring and had pretty good reviews of him. And it was my first look of ever seeing Lazuski, and just thought he hit the entire state games. I got to see his team, I think, either all three of their games or at least two of their games, and a lot to like with the frame. Skinny, high waisted, like it's projectable. He's got more strength to come once he gets in a college weight program. Really picks it on the infield as well. Saw him make a couple nice plays at second base mostly, but he probably has the glove to play short if need be. But a lot to like with the swing. It's athletic. It's left-handed, so he's got those two things in his back pocket to start out. And then moving over to Filippo Barada at number 82. This is a kid that I liked in the spring when I saw him at Lincoln Way Central. Really athletic defender as well. Just unfortunately for him, he's got Liam Arcich also that goes to Lincoln Way Central. So Arcich mainly plays center field for Central in the spring, who was a future gamer for us last year. He's going to Toledo. But with Barada, man, like his game continues to tick up, and that's something, Drew, you touched on earlier, is seeing these guys that continue to get better, right? Saw Barada in the spring, liked it, thought he played well in the spring. We see him at the Central Illinois Open, and his game continues to get better. See him at Illinois State games, and his game continues to get better and better. So, and that's why he's jumping or making the jump that he has in the rankings.
So, kind of looking now at the 26s, a really talented class here, top to bottom. We just got a really good look at a lot of these guys in the top 10 at the future games, aside from Ethan Bass and TJ McQuillan, who are at number 1 and number 2 because they were committed previous to the event. McQuillan is still committed to Louisville, but Bass is uncommitted now. But Drew, I don't know if you kind of want to take us through any of these 26s. I know we talked about them in our previous podcast after the future games, but a new top 10 for this class.
Yeah, and it's, as this happens every year, it does get loaded with former future gamers at the top of the class. They come to the future games because we think they are very, very good. And in years past, there's maybe been a few more committed 26s that sit at the top of the class that don't go to the future games because that's an uncommitted event. But this year, just looking up and down the list, it's loaded with future gamers. So I don't want to just rehash about all these future gamers. One thing that I see looking at this top 10, Ethan Bass is really, really good, right? He's sitting at number 1 in the state. But I look down and I see TJ McQuillan. I see Landon Tomey. I see Cameron Jenkins. I see Nolan Ramley. I see Brody Landgraf. I see Jory Crocker. I see Connor Ellentenny, Michael Pettit, and Patty Roth. And I think you could legitimately see any of those guys make a jump and warrant being the top player in the class. Like, that is how talented those guys are, and that is how strong it is at the top. Brody Landgraf is number 6 right now, and he might be my man. It's hard, but I think with just the strength and the sheer left-handed power in his bat with the feel to hit, like, you could make a strong case for him. But then you look at Landon Tomey at number 3, and it's like, okay, there's not a more polished bat in the class. And it's left-handed, and there's more power to come. And then you look at TJ McQuillan, and it's one of the most explosive bats in the class there at number 2. He's just got all kinds of power, and it's dynamic what he does offensively. So I think that's a really cool thing, just looking at this 2026 class. You want to talk about rankings, like, you could flip a coin with a lot of these guys, right? We have to put a number on them. It's one of the hardest things that we do. We're not perfect, but we try to look at everything that we've gathered and do the best we can. And to me, that's what I look at and I see. It's like, I can make a case for Jory Crocker. Like, that guy is a stud. And what he does on the mound as a position guy, like, shoot, you can make an argument he could be number 1 in the class. You can make an argument he's top 3. But I love this class, Gavin, to kind of get back on track here. There are a lot of guys and names to note. I just went through the top 10. I don't really think there's anybody else worth talking about there. I know Nolan Ramley's, he's at number 5. We saw him really good this weekend. Like, if that bat continues to show more and more polish, he's going to continue to go higher and higher. And the hard thing, too, is, like, all these guys hopefully continuing to improve. So, like, just because you improve doesn't mean you're going to pass up anybody. You need to improve just to stay where you are. And I was thinking about this earlier today because the biggest thing that we get, or I tend to get, is, hey, why am I dropping in the rankings? We rank these guys at a young age. So we have 2027s that we're going to talk about as well that are ranked. we only rank a small amount of them at a young age because we only see a small amount of them where we feel confident enough to have seen them in a showcase, seen them in a game, seen them in a tournament, get enough in-game looks at them, really truly feel like we have a whole picture of who this player is to be confident enough to make a rankings list. And then the rest of these 27s, these 26s, this past spring, only a select few 26s are playing varsity baseball. So when we go to see these guys, we're not seeing the rest of the 2026s in the state that are playing JV. So the pot of players, the group of players that we are ranking, we may rank, let's just say in the 2026 class, we rank a top 100. And we have 400 total players in that pot of players that we're looking at. And we choose 100 guys that we think are the best guys. We put a grade on them and we rank them. Well, as they get older, we see more and more 26s. So that group of 400 players that we were now ranking these 100 players in, that group of 400 after next spring, where we see high school baseball all spring long, and the 26s are now juniors, so a heck of a lot more of them are playing high school baseball. Now that group of 400 becomes 1,000, 800. And we see so many more players that then warrant potentially being ranked. So if I gave, let's just say we grade out on a top 100 scale, 1 through 100, we grade players out, which we don't. We have a different grade scale we use. But if I put an 81 on Peter and I put an 83 on Tyler, and they're ranked in the top 100, and Peter's at number 80 because he's got an 81 grade on him, and maybe that football is at number 70 because that's where his grade 83 lands. Well, as we see all of these players, there's going to be more and more players that come to the forefront that have grades that we've put on them at 83 or higher. There's going to be 84s, 85s, 86s. They all warrant going into the rankings above somebody that we graded out at an 81 or an 83. Okay? So Peter and Tyler, their grade is still an 81, 83. I still like them. They still have the same grade in my mind. But because we've seen more players with a higher grade, those players naturally then, Peter and Tyler, have to drop down the list. It doesn't mean that they lose any kind of standing in my eye. I still have them. We still have them slotted at a certain grade. But the more players that we see that potentially could come in with grades, there's going to be more that come in with higher grades. And that warrants players naturally trickling down the list. So when you see a guy that actually climbs up the list, they are elevating their grade substantially. They're not staying the same. They're not getting gradually better. If they're getting gradually better, how that then fits in the rankings is they probably stay around, if I'm talking about Peter and he was 81 the time before and he's gradually getting better, he's probably still moving down from 81, down the list, or staying the same. And technically he's getting better as a player. So I know that's not maybe the best explanation of it, but I do think it's a hard thing for these players at this age to really understand when we continue to update the rankings. Like, hey, why was I 30 and now I'm 47? They must not think the same of me. It's like, no, we still think you're an 88. Like, we had you graded out as an 88. You're still an 88, but these guys are just 89s or better. So that to me is something that I just wanted to touch on. Peter, it sounds like you might want to say something as well. So sorry for going long-winded there.
No, it's kind of like, and I think you've used this analysis before. It's like, if you're the valedictorian or you're number whatever in your class and it's a small school, then you go to a bigger school, you're gonna probably drop, because there's just more people. So like the more people that are added to the list, like the more we find, the more kids pop, like it's just naturally gonna go down. And that's just the way it goes.
And I think we all sit here and we hate that, right? Like, we never want a guy to think he's going down a list. But it's just the nature of the beast. And I think for me, just to inform the public and to inform the players that are going through this process, we owe it to them so they know what's going on. All they're seeing is that we're putting a ranking next to their name.
Don't let the number define like the player that you are, Like, obviously it's a good baseline in a way to kind of see where maybe scouts or coaches and things like that see you, but like don't let that define that, oh, I'm the 25th best player in the class. Like I just think you need to realize that the rankings are just a ranking. It doesn't mean that you need to go out there and play your game. Be the player that you are, and don't try and let that define you and become kind of your who you are. I guess
How
I
you
don't know
feel
how else
about
to word it,
yourself
but
as a baseball
yeah,
player. I think you
yeah,
said it
yeah.
perfectly. I couldn't agree more with that. Like, how we rank you should have zero impact on how you validate yourself as a baseball player. Whether we rank you number one or we don't rank you. Because there's plenty of guys that have been ranked number one that are out of college baseball quick. There's plenty of guys that don't get ranked after their senior year that get drafted out of college, that get better or prove us wrong, or maybe we had one look at them and it wasn't a great look. There's so many dynamics to it. So please, I can't agree with you more, Gavin. Like, just do not. Yes, it's a cool talking point, right? It's fun. I love looking at the college football polls, and I love looking at the power rankings in the NFL. Like, everybody loves to look at it, but in reality, don't let it define anything about you as a baseball player. And just my biggest advice would be, no matter where you're ranked or not ranked, use it as a motivating tactic. Trick yourself and use it as a motivator. But I feel like that's really important, because we sit here, we talk about rankings, we give it a lot of attention. It's all about being, first off, a good person. Like, being a good person who's going to have a bright future, who's going to take care of their grades, do the right thing in school, be a good person, so that when coaches call on you, when coaches are interested in you as an athlete, then all the reports they get back from those coaches, from people that have worked with you in school, in your gym class, in art, in whatever it may be, speak of you highly as a person. Take care of that first, because that's going to be the defining factor on getting offers. If a school's looking at you versus somebody else and you guys are the same exact athletic ability, they're going to go after the guy with good grades. It's getting good reports back from their coach that's saying, hey, he's a team guy, he's a great kid, he works hard, he spends time after practice, he does all those things. Be that guy and work your tail off in baseball, and good things will happen for you.
And Drew, another thing, like, off of that, just with the All-American game happening this past weekend and being around some of those players, like, talking about you saying being a good person, we were around some of the best players in the country, and every single one of those kids that we talked to, they were just really nice kids, great people, super appreciative of everything. And I think that kind of speaks volumes to why that they're as good as they are and they're as talented as they are, because if you're a good person, it leads to other things in your life that help you become a better individual on the baseball field, in the classroom, in your community, whatever it is. So I think that's a great point too, is just being a good person is super important in all of this. Lucas Simulik, I mean, he's at number 21. I think he's a name that had a really good state games, if any of you guys want to kind of talk through him.
No, and I think really this entire staff is like Lucas for a long time. I mean, he was a junior future gamer 3 summers ago when me and Gavin were interns, right? Like, and he was on the fringe of being a future gamer for us. Unfortunately, like, it just wasn't in the cards this year, and it speaks to how good this class is overall. But man, Lucas had a heck of a state games. Again, he was on that same team with Ryan Lazewski that I talked about earlier for the 25s. Like, so I saw him a lot. He is all over the field on defense, can make every play at shortstop, has the arm to make every throw from shortstop, and then offensively, his bat's come a long way. Me and Pete saw him in the spring. I think Pete saw him probably more than I did. I think I only saw JCA once, but just the overall mentality at the plate, I think, has come a long way, and it showed up at the state games. He was aggressive in the box, aggressive in hitters' counts, made pitchers pay in hitters' counts, hit a homer. He was almost our MVP for the state games. So Lucas has continued to get better, and really the sky's the limit for that kid.
And another guy kind of climbing up our list here who did it at the state games, been trying to get a look at him for a while, actually, especially on the mound, was Ryan Harris from Stevenson. He's up to number 26. And, from what I saw on that, like I think he was throwing on your field, Peter, but I was over there checking out his stint, and whatever I get wrong here, just correct me like normal. But no, it's just he's a 6'2", good looking prospect, two-way. He's an outfielder, right-handed pitcher. But what did it for me was what he did on the mound. Clean arm and just a very lively arm. He was up to 92 point. Man, let me make sure I'm right here. Basically rounded up to 93. So our TrackMan had him 92.6, rounds up to 93. There's not many 2026s in Illinois or across the country that are throwing that firm. Wasn't a ton of strikes, but I was still highly, highly intrigued by it. And anything else you had on top there?
No, he cleaned it up the second inning. It was a lot more strikes, I thought, and yeah, I mean, the pure arm talent alone is one to make note of, and why we rank him where we did, basically. And then the more polish he gets, the more he's going to rise. It's just simple as that.
Yeah, he's definitely a name to know and one to watch. He's uncommitted. Caden Shatzik, RJ Duncan,
Yeah.
Jake Matisse, Sam Chin. Those are some guys here next on the board, but go ahead, Gav.
I'm just going to briefly say something about Caden Shatzik and RJ Duncan. I mean, they're both small town Central Illinois kids. I guess RJ's an East Peoria kid, so not too small town, but both uncommitted on that Future Games team. Guys that have really, really shined this summer, and they did well at the state games too. So just two names to know: big power arms, right-handed arms. So I think they're both touching 90, 91. RJ maybe a little bit higher, but
yeah, RJ was firm.
Really
in
intriguing
Future
frames.
Games, I know.
Yeah. Really intriguing frames from them, but just some names to know that have kind of moved up the board. Shatzick's at number 34 and Dungeon's now at number 36.
Two Chicago Catholic League arms are next here for me, Gav, and Samuel Chin at St. Lawrence and Jake Matisse. Matisse comes in at 38. We got Chin right behind him at 39. Both fairly similar, I guess, when you look at. We really like the way they move. Everybody in today's day and age wants to talk about the velo, the spin rates, all that stuff. And I'm not saying you don't talk about it, but neither of them have the eye-popping velo right now. But we're going to bet on the way their body moves that the velo is going to come, because they're both really fluid, athletic. Matisse, to me, has a little more like bounce in his just overall way he moves, I guess. Like, he played some third base this spring for Mount Carmel, and I love the way he was bouncing around in pregame, and he kind of bounces off the mound. He's just athletic and springy, and I saw him recently, just this past weekend at the fall championship. His breaking ball was firming up a little bit. He was only 80-83. We've seen it firmer, but he throws a ton of strikes. He's athletic. He's got feel. He holds the running game. He's an athlete on the mound. And then you got Samuel Chin, left-handed, and I think Peter was mentioning earlier that, and it might have been in a previous podcast, but that he moves a lot like Cameron Appenzeller for Peter that's kind of who he reminds him of. And if you're going to model yourself after a mover, there's not many better than Cameron Appenzeller. So he's got a good comp there in that. He was 79-82. It's been low 80s for a lot of the summer, but both of those guys are candidates after a strong winter if they can get after it and really hit the weight room and add some quality strength. I mean, those are two guys that I would bet on to make jumps over the winter. And if not the winter, sometime soon. All these guys make jumps at different times. Everybody's body is different. Everybody goes through maturity and puberty at different times, and they pop at different times. But as far as the way that they move, they both look right, and they both have polish and presence on the mound, and I like them both.
Yeah, I just think both guys, know how to pitch. And at this level, like, that's kind of a lost art in a way. Like, the velo is eventually going to come for both these kids in all likelihood, right? Like, I'm probably going to get his title wrong, but like our director of scouting for the entire company, Shooter Hunt, says the biggest, velocity helper is just puberty, right? Like, so the fact that these guys at this age are learning how to pitch, learning how to compete, is huge because then once the velo comes, they're essentially going to have it all. So, no, just wanted to add that nugget on those guys.
And those are the guys that, when they get to the next level, those are the guys that are ahead. The guys that had to learn how to pitch at a younger age versus the guys that had arm strength at a younger age, and they could get away with blowing away hitters with just the fastball. They didn't have to learn how to pitch backwards, and everybody can hit a fastball at the college level. You got to be able to do something else. The last guy, Gav, here that I just want to touch on as far as a riser is concerned before we get into some newcomers was a standout at our Illinois State games, Johnny Andrich. Uncommitted left-hand hitting outfielder at Plainfield North. Had a good spring for them, I know, talking to their assistant over there, Newey. But if you guys had anything on Andrich you wanted to mention, he's a guy to follow. Ranked at number 50 in our class now, up 38
Drew.
spots.
I saw one of his games. He's a left-handed hitter, and he just has good bat to ball. That's really as simple as it is. He's a pretty athletic kid. It looks like there's some room for him still to add some strength. He's a pretty smaller frame with not a ton of strength yet, but good bat to ball. He was 5 for 6 with a double, triple, 4 RBIs, a run, a walk, and then 2 stolen bases. So yeah, the Illinois State Games MVP, and rightfully so. He's moving up.
The 26s, man, they're in a unique spot right now. Starting this fall, coaches are able to reach out to them, and one guy that we had a brief look at this summer, I think Tyler got a look at him at a tournament. Zane Caves, big left-handed arm out of Manuka. I had heard the name a couple times. Tyler got a look on him, but then I finally got a look at him too at the Illinois State Games, and he would have been high on our list. If he would have shown what we saw at the Illinois State Games right before the future games, it would have been hard not to take him. 6'5", every bit of it. He might be listed as taller than that. Two-sport athlete from what I understand, but really, really lively fastball. Does something to hide it because it only plays in like the mid-80s, but he was getting all kinds of bad, ugly, tardy swings on it where guys could not pick it up. The breaking ball at the Illinois State Games, I don't think he was showing the best breaking ball that we've seen. I think Tyler saw it better in the summer, but he did flash one with high spin, all kinds of depth. Really, it comes down to he is a long-levered, left-handed arm that throws strikes, that has all kinds of upside, and you can't bet on those guys enough, in my opinion. So he's popping in here at 35. Peter, Tyler, if you guys had anything else on him, feel free.
Yeah, I'll just say, he's also QB1 for Manuka, I believe. I think we heard that somewhere, which kind of just speaks to the level of athlete that he is. But yeah, I really liked it earlier in the summer. Like Drew, you said, if it would have been what it was at the state games, he probably would have been a no-doubter for us at the future games. But there is something with how he hides the ball. It was every bit of probably 83 when I saw him earlier in the summer. But that day he just had an absolute hammer of a breaking ball. He probably had 8 or 9 strikeouts, and I'd say 90% of those were from the breaking ball that day. So just a lot to like with Caves for sure moving forward.
QB at Manuka also plays basketball. So we've got a 3-sport athlete that's 6'5", left-handed arm, can spin it. We're probably low right now at 35. Just talking through it, he's probably a guy that, depending on how much work he can put into baseball, because if he's playing 3 sports, who knows? He may not pop until college, but that's a guy that I really like, and I could easily see him continuing to climb up the list. So that was, the top newcomer for me that I thought warranted being mentioned. And then right behind him, we've got 2 right-handed arms, Jack Slidham and Henry Humes. Jack Slidham's just huge arrow up from the last couple times we had seen him, and just one of those guys that we've been talking about that just continues to get better. The velo was always a little light at a younger age, but comes to the Illinois State Games and tears it up, and just the look, the velo, Jack Slydom, Lyons Township, and Henry Humes, Homewood Flossmoor. Two arms that are newcomers that both need to be, fully on college coaches' radars. Jack Slydom, I liked the way he worked down the mound when he was pitching in the mid 70s at a younger age. He was probably 14 or 15 years old, looked like he was, younger than that. So he always had a young look, a body that you could see filling out, and the velo now is starting to tick up. And he was one of the more higher ceiling right-handed arms at the Illinois State games for me. And Henry Humes is right there with them. So Peter, it looks like you might have a comment on one or two of those guys.
Yeah, no, I had Humes on my mound. 6'5", every bit of it, 170, 175 pounds. Really easy mover. I really liked the way it came out. He was up to 87. He could spin it a little bit too, and he flashed a really good changeup. I think that kid is just starting to scratch the surface. And then, no, I totally agree about Slydom. I haven't seen it in person, but just watching the videos, like the way that kid moves, and you look at his just look at the kid, like he still looks very young. So like he's gonna get physical the back end of high school and in college, and then that's when he's really gonna pop. So that's someone that I'm sure coaches are gonna get on soon, and same with Humes.
Gav, one other arm here that I have. Sorry, I'm just looking through my list, making sure
you're good.
We're mentioning the right guys. I don't want to miss anybody over here, but another standout at the Illinois State games was Gabriel Perez, Illinois Valley Central.
Yeah.
IVC down there. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, IVC.
Did you get a look at him, Gav?
I did. He was on my mound. Just a quick little thing about IVC. They're was known for a while as a Central Illinois powerhouse in a small town in Chillicothe, right outside of Peoria. Zach McAllister went there. He's a longtime MLB pitcher. The Parr brothers, all Illinois commits. Drayson Johnson, an Illinois commit. Just a lot of talented baseball players come through. And then Gabe Perez is another one here in this 26 class. He's a left-handed arm. He's up to 87 at the state games. With a pretty good breaking ball as well. He threw 2 innings, 4 strikeouts, and only walked 1. But really good stuff there from Gabe, and we're excited to see him kind of moving forward.
And then 2 position players that impacted the list for the first time. One was Jalen Ware. He's at Simeon High School, but he's another high ceiling guy. He's 6'2". Just kind of starting to fill out with that lean quality muscle. He ran a 6.73 this past state games, and I like the bat. It's a right-handed bat. I love the way he runs and floats around the diamond and floats around the bases. I think there's still some rawness to his overall game, but I like Jalen Ware's upside. I like what it could be. I like the athlete. I think he's going to get really strong. And he impacted this list for the first time, as did Garrett Pugh. And to be honest with you, I don't have a ton on Garrett. Garrett was a West Vigo guy from the Terre Haute area, so he's technically in Indiana. Cooper Trinkle, who runs Indiana over there with Phil Wade, reached out to me and told us that Garrett Pugh was transferring to Marshall High School, which is a small town down there on the Illinois-Indiana border, just across kind of from that Terre Haute, right off the highway. I think it's I-70 down there. So he's now in Illinois. He's a former future gamer, big physical corner infielder with a strong bat. So he's now plugged into the Illinois rankings, a guy to know if you're just kind of following that Illinois scene. And 2 arms from the Central Illinois area that are newcomers to this list, Gavin. We got Chase Rhodes out of Tremont, and we've got Josh Jones down there in the Bloomington Normal area. So I don't know if you have anything on those guys, but 2 quality arms to know.
I didn't see Chase Rhodes at the state games, but he's a long, lanky, right-handed arm that's mid upper 80s fastball. And then Josh Jones, he's a normal U-High kid. His brother plays collegiately. I'm not exactly sure what school it's at, but he's a good arm, one of those athletic movers that we were kind of talking about, where he's a mid-80s guy as well, and I think he's kind of a guy that the velo will continue to tick up for him as he gets older and develops more. But 2 really good arms here in Central Illinois, and I think there's It's kind of becoming a common theme in this area. We have a lot of good arms down here. So.
Oh, yeah. And there's no slowing down right now, Gavin. They just keep coming out of the woodworks. I love it. There's plenty of other names we could mention in the 26 class, but we're going to keep moving here. We're going to just talk about the 27s. Gavin, we updated this September 11th. We went from a top 30 to a top 40. Like I kind of mentioned, these guys are still really young. They're not talking to college coaches. I don't see a need to take this list to 200 when we've got limited looks at this age, especially in-game looks. And that's, to me, what it's all about when we really want to piece together a list that we feel confident about. We felt the most confident about keeping it at 40. There's certainly guys on this list that we left off that very easily could be put on. I mean, just looking through this, Owen Satterley is a good arm at Prairie Ridge. Luca Agni, Peter just mentioned seeing him at the Fall Championship. Plainfield North, he's a guy that probably could be on this list. Tyler Kohlhofer's an arm out of Libertyville that moved really well at the Slammer Scout Day that we think he's going to make a huge jump at some point because he's got the frame, the body, the three-pitch repertoire. It's easy. Aiden Dillon, competitive left-hander at Brother Rice, can really pitch. He's not on the list. Luke Bryant, a right-handed arm we just saw at Hall. It's a good arm. Jace Koth at Jacobs, a fluid left-handed hitter that I just saw this past weekend. James Wasson, 2027, big arm that we don't have enough on. Charlie Caraselli, Providence Catholic, really, really high-level pitchability guy. The velo's not totally there yet. Just doesn't need to be on this list yet, but like really good. And they're going to impact the list at some point. They're just going to have to get patient. This list has to continue to grow. We have to see more and more guys. I mean, I'm just going down the list here. Like Miles Broom is a really talented catcher at Homewood Flossmoor. Derek Pomato, another catcher to know. So, there's plenty of guys that aren't on this list. We're going to talk about some that are. The top of the class is really, really strong. Sebastian Wilson continues to do it on a national stage. Left-handed bat. He was an early commit at Tennessee before they changed the rules. Still committed there. He's the top of our class right now, but man, it's like 1A, 1B. It's almost a shame you have to put a 1 and a 2 on these guys because Caden Wisniewski at McHenry is the real deal. From a personality standpoint to just being a no-nonsense, even keel, don't show emotion, go about your business the right way. It's high level on the mound. It's, low 90s with pitchability, and then he goes out and he runs like a 6.55 at the state games, and he swings the bat, and he can play the infield, and impacted varsity as a freshman. I mean, he's a stud. I think we could talk on him all day long. Feel free and jump in anywhere if you guys want. You can cut me off. I don't care.
Drew, just really quick, the one thing that I thought was cool about him was at the state games, he was facing the pro case team when he was pitching. And that first inning he just went out there and basically carved him up with fastballs. And gets off the mound and we're talking to him and he's just like, yep, whatever.
Just another day in the life.
It was business as usual.
Yeah.
So, yeah, really talented two-way. Well,
it speaks, I think, like, we've seen it a couple times. It doesn't seem like the stage will ever be too big for that guy. We saw him in the playoffs. We've seen him at the junior future games. We've seen him at the Illinois State games, like you're talking about, pitching against a pro case team with a ton of schools right behind right behind home plate. So, can't say enough about him. Right behind him's a high-level arm in Brady Bunick out of Libertyville. As far as somebody that very easily could pop and be the number one prospect in the class in the Midwest, like he has the attributes to be that guy. As does Jackson Tucker. He was a varsity starter as a freshman at Oswego East. It's a long levered frame, genetically, like the dad was a 2-sport Division I college athlete. Like there's a lot to bet on there. He can play shortstop. Really like Jackson Tucker. Colin Campbell, we just got to look at him. He's a Louisville commit, left-handed hitter. Trevor McClure, I think, has a chance to be like the next little Owen Murphy. He's a two-way down there at Mount Vernon, but like I think it's going to be really good on the mound one day. but I love it offensively as well. Like, I'm not anywhere near ready to say he's one way or the other. Cole Rushiri's a big arm out of Wabanzi Valley that's committed to Missouri, that he might have the liveliest, best fastball in the class when it's all said and done. Colin Schweigen's a multi-sport athlete out of Rock Ridge, putting up huge numbers on the football field this year as a quarterback. QB1, he does it with his legs and his arm at that school. It's really good arm, and the breaking ball keeps getting better for him. So, I mean, I know I'm just kind of going down the top 10 right now, but Gavin Stanislawski at Brother Rice really looks the part as like a future big-time corner infielder as long as the bat continues to tick up the way we think it will. Josh Morgan's another high-level multi-sport athlete, big-time football player, outfielder, goes to Fenwick. He's at number 10. So that's a long-winded, just quick rundown of the top 10. I mean, we feel really strong about the guys that make this list. If we didn't, they wouldn't make the list at this age. So there's some guys that also maybe climbed up a little bit here, Gavin, in the past update. Chase Reinhardt being one.
Yeah, similar to what you saw with Wisniewski that first night, Reinhardt to close out the state games was equally as impressive against the Pro Case team. Left-handed arm, quick arm, and another kid that kind of just knows how to pitch right now. He's confident in all of his offerings and throws strikes with all those pitches. So, no, a lot to like with Chase.
Yep, and that's exactly what I saw out of him. I think he's a guy, as you project towards next year, like, we'll be getting multiple looks on him for future games. Left-handed, throw strikes, there's upside, and in the frame, he's not overly big, but it's that wide-shouldered, athletic, trim build that I think he's going to add quality muscle, and he's going to look the part out there on the mound. And I think the velo is going to continue to tick up, and he's already got the pitchability part going. So huge upside in there. It's a clean, uninterrupted arm action as well. So there's really no red flags as of right now. Tyler Gluting was another one that I think will be a guy that will be on that future games watch. He's a left-handed arm, also plays outfield, left. We really like the swing as well. Nowhere near ready to say he's a pitcher or a hitter or anything. Like, just keep doing both. You're really good at both. Keep doing it, and eventually you'll figure it out. But he's a guy now coming in at number 17. He was at 18. And then Liam Nash, I think, was one maybe noteworthy name here, Gavin, Peter, that we saw. Diego, he's down there. He's no longer with Prep Baseball Illinois. He's now taking another job in the Southern Illinois, St. Louis area. Wish the best to him. Was instrumental in everything we did here in our HQ in Illinois. But he's been on Liam Nash for a while. Saw him before I think the rest of us did. I think he saw him down at Creekside, and then we got to see him at the Illinois State game. So, Peter, I know he was on your field.
Yeah, he was the first arm I saw in the whole event, so that was a good way to kick it off. Up to 87 with a good slider. He could throw it for strikes, and he was getting a ton of swing and miss with both offerings. He's about 6'1", 190, so it's a good frame. He's got some strength, but he can still, get stronger and grow as he gets a little older. But no, I think that kid, the pitchability and the pure arm talent he has is definitely some of the better in the class, or better in the state for sure.
One thing I just wanted to mention about this class as a whole, like for me, the 27s is just a really cool group because it's almost like the first class from essentially top to bottom that myself and I would say Defaball too have really gotten to like fully get in the mix with, I guess, because just as our database has grown with this class, like we were kind of a part of that. That was kind of our first class that we were kind of saw from top to bottom, basically, whereas some of these other classes, it was kind of we were in the middle of it, getting into the mix of it, but seeing this 27 group from basically 7th, 8th graders to, hopefully their senior class is really, really cool to see. So I really enjoy this 27 class, and we have so much information on them. So I think that's awesome.
Well, and it's credit to you guys getting out and crushing it. And like you said, crushing it from a young age. A lot of these guys were a part of our junior future games that you guys were a part of helping coach. And getting those first looks at that age and really understanding the trends that these guys are on and who really is, continuing to prove, who's maybe flatlined a little bit, who needs to make an adjustment. It tells you a lot. So I don't think I have anything else here with the rankings. I know we talked through a lot of guys. I know there's a lot of guys we probably could talk about and didn't talk about, and hopefully we'll touch on them in future podcasts. And but I think after a long summer and us finally, able to catch our breath and update the rankings, there is a lot to talk about, and there is a lot of shifting going on and a lot of movement. And guys get better and guys don't get better and guys get worse, and that's why we're out seeing it, because what a guy is today is not what they necessarily are in a month, 2 months, 3 months. And that's what it's all about, is continuing to get looks on these guys, see the trends they're on, and see as many players as we can to try to feel as confident as we can and to know as many players as we can in this state to do our job as best we can. So appreciate you guys and all the work that you put into these rankings and seeing these players and chatting about it.